Good evening and welcome to our Pennsylvania Interfaith Power and Light June 20th quarterly meeting. Today, we are fortunate to have Jonathan Sprout with us for the first of our summer film series. This is the second summer that PAIPL is offering the series, and we're just thrilled to have Jonathan and members of his team with us tonight. They're going to introduce themselves in just a second. I'm going to go off camera for a moment in order to improve my bandwidth here. There we go. So my name is Kathy Rabofsky. I'm the development associate with PAIPL. I'm sorry that David Hain Menendez, our executive director, can't be with us tonight, but he has given me permission to lead the meeting. So I'm thrilled to be doing that with you. And let's see here. There we go. For those of us who are on the call tonight who might be new to PAIPL, I would like to talk a little bit about our mission. PAIPL truly seeks to inspire and mobilize people of faith and conscience to take bold and just action on climate justice from an ethical and moral perspective. And I'm not exaggerating when I say we have everyone in our membership group from atheists to Zen Buddhists, everyone in between. Atheists because they're still morally and ethically responsible, and then every faith group that you can possibly imagine. It just fills me with great joy to work with this diverse group of people, and I know if you're new to PAIPL, you'll find great joy in working with us too. And the reason that we follow this mission is because our present circumstances really demand action. I can't tell you the amount of suffering that I witness on a daily basis, and it's spreading throughout our population, particularly with those who are not equipped to handle it as well as we would like. So we particularly focus on climate justice or environmental justice communities, people who are disproportionately affected by climate change. And we do this because our sacred texts and moral values require us. If we are walking the walk, we are required to protect creation and pursue justice for all species, not just humans even. And our actions really can engender hope and motivate change in personal, community behavior and in public policy. There are a number of human mental health issues that are associated with climate change, and we explored those last fall in one of our statewide meetings. So I encourage you to go to our YouTube channel and find the link to the statewide meeting where we had Mary Beth Manarino, a psychologist, and Wanda Guthrie, one of our previous board members, talk about the challenges that people face, particularly young people, because they have a difficult time being hopeful about their future in our current climate. Today is a very special day. It's Juneteenth, as celebrated as a national holiday, and many of you know that Juneteenth is certainly a cause for celebration among all people. It has been called Emancipation Day and also Jubilee Day, and it celebrates the day that slaves in Galveston, Texas were finally informed of their freedom, even though President Abraham Lincoln had signed the Emancipation Proclamation 2 years prior to this holiday. It was first celebrated way back in 1866, but it wasn't recognized as a federal holiday until June 2021, when President Joe Biden signed it into law. President Biden stated at the signing ceremony at the White House, quote, "This is a day, in my view, of profound weight and profound power, a day in which we remember the moral stain and terrible toll that slavery took on the country and continues to take," unquote. And I would like to offer a Juneteenth prayer. I am a practicing Lutheran, so I found this prayer published by the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and I think it particularly focuses on the ways that we can work against modern discrimination, systemic racism, and hatred. And being a Christian, I'll read it from the Christian perspective, so thank you for bearing with me if you subscribe to a different faith. Dear God, Grant us grace to contend fearlessly against evil and to make no peace with oppression. Help us, like those generations before us who resisted the evil of slavery and human bondage in any form, any manner of oppression. Help us to see our freedoms to bring justice among people and nations everywhere to the glory of your holy name through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Jonathan Sprout, who founded Force for Good in 2016. Jonathan states that his primary objective through his music and films is to unify, empower, and inspire people to become activists. He and his team are optimists who promote peace, equality, and compassion for all. We hope that you will join us. Be the force that uplifts the doers of good. And I can't thank Jonathan and his team for being with us tonight. He very graciously offers his films and music on his website for all to view. I hope many of you have been able to view at least some of them before tonight, but there are probably 30 films, and we particularly recommend those that relate to our mission of climate justice, and some which are just purely spiritual inspiration. So please take it away, Jonathan. I will stop sharing so that you can share.
Thanks, Kathy.
Sure.
I'll say it up front that I'm very new to PowerPoint, and you are going to be my first PowerPoint audience, you lucky people. So I think I finished the PowerPoint presentation about 30 minutes ago. We'll find out today. But I have my my thoughts put together, whether or not this all works technically. And I just want to say, yeah, I want to say, first of all, this is very exciting for me because I, as are you, am a person of faith, and it's so special to see people of faith dealing with climate change. It's I hope I don't offend anybody by saying this, but it seems like if you look at the national news, it seems like an oxymoron that people of faith are dealing with climate issues. And I say that facetiously. What I mean is that everybody should be dealing with it. And I'm just honored to be in on it tonight with all of you. So I have this little talk. I think it's going to run about a half hour. And I would like to talk about my own quest to become a net zero lifestyle kind of guy, and talk about some of the specifics of what I've been working on, hoping that the things that I've been learning have, will rub off a little bit onto you all. And I might be able to give you some ideas about things that are practical ways to get toward what I call net zero. And I think you all probably know this, but I kind of just want to say that humans are experiencing, I believe, an existential crisis that's been developing for many decades. And global climates are changing as a result of greenhouse gases humans have released into the atmosphere. The lives of many living things on this planet are threatened. And I believe it is the responsibility of each of us to do what we can to alleviate this crisis. And I see it in terms of working in two ways. One is politically, and the other is what I call personally. And I want to talk mostly tonight about the personal, and mention some of the things that I have been able to go through in my home, in my life, in my house. And I know many of you have too, and I'm sure that in certain areas of environmentalism, some of you are far more along the line of being environmentalists than I am. But let me just share with you what I've come up with. So I'm going to attempt to share a screen with my, oh wait, with this.
There you go.
There we go. Good.
Perfect.
What is net zero talk? Living with a low carbon footprint. A net zero lifestyle is a result of balancing the amount of greenhouse gas produced with the amount removed from the atmosphere. We reach net zero when the amount we add to the atmosphere is no more than the amount taken away from the atmosphere. And in my case, in my life, it's been more about reducing greenhouse gas emissions than about removing them. So that's what I want to talk about. And I just want to start by telling you the story that 8 years ago, I moved into a place called Bryn Gweled. It means Hill of Vision in Welsh. It's a community, it's an intentional community in Bucks County. It's been around since 1940. It was founded by Quaker families. And a lot of people here happen to be environmentally friendly. You know, it always helps to be surrounded by people who uplift and inspire you. And so the people of Bryn Gweled have done that for me. Who wouldn't be inspired by a place like this? We have several miles of roads that are privately owned, and each place has 2 acres of land that we lease, and we like planting trees here. Here we go. So the first thing I did when I moved here to Bryn Gweled was I paid a couple $100 for a thorough home energy analysis. The company, I believe in Yardley, Ecocentric Energy Solutions, came in and did a thing that took 2 days. They did an energy analysis that was able to tell me, you know, where I was leaking energy and advise as to how I could become more energy efficient. I had cinder block walls, and the tech guy who was here had a gun that could measure temperature. And I remember it was about 45 degrees outside, and he measured the outside of the cinder block wall at 45 degrees. And then he came inside and he measured the inside of the cinder block wall at 50 degrees. So cinder block walls aren't very efficient. You can imagine eventually I had all of that insulated and protected. And that was one step toward becoming more energy proficient. Now, I also, one of the first big things I did was I got solar panels. And I could probably talk the whole night tonight about solar panels. Maybe some of you have seen the solar video that we made. Essentially, it was a little over 5 years ago. I had 26 panels purchased through a company, a wonderful company in Yardley called Exact Solar. I have 8 megawatts generated a year. And there are 2 reasons why I have solar panels. One is for the environment, and the other is to make money. And I think it's really important that people understand this, that having renewable energy is a fiscally responsible thing to do, as well as an environmentally responsible thing to do. These are the inverters on the side of the house. When you get solar panels, you get a really cool app. And these are 2 screenshots from my smartphone that reveal some of the stats about my solar panels. So I have these panels in the last 5+ years have generated enough electricity that's gone into the electric grid to offset 68,000 pounds of carbon dioxide. And that's the equivalent of planting 514 trees. So environmentally, that's huge. And financially, these things, the panels, pay for themselves in, I think it's 12.25 years. They cost me $17,000. Actually, it was $24,000, and then there was a 30% federal tax credit. So I ended up paying $17,000. And they're giving me back 8% on the investment on the money that I spent buying them. Where can you get an 8% return? Certainly, if you have money in a bank nowadays, you're getting, I know Jerome Powell just upped the rate. I don't know what it is now, but it's way under 2%, I'm sure, still. So it's a financial great thing, as well as an environmental great thing to have solar panels. I have only one utility here in my house. I happen to have a house that has a well and has a septic system. So the only utility I have is electricity. And I end up putting more electricity into the grid through something called net metering, which is available in, I believe, 48 states. 48 states have to do net metering. If you set up panels or have a wind farm or do geothermal energy, they have to accept the energy you give to them through the grid. And I put more into the grid than I take out. Of course, at night, I pull from the grid, but in the daytime, I give to the grid. And the net result is that I give more than I get. So that's good for the environment. I also have some high energy efficient heat pumps. I love these things. These are made by Mitsubishi. They're also referred to sometimes as mini splits. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but here on the left is the compressor outside. And here on the right is the unit that's on the inside. You can install these in homes that do not have ducts, so they're ductless. You can put them in a room. I have 6 of them in different places throughout my house. They run about $4,000 a piece. They're not cheap, but I believe over time they pay for themselves because of their efficiency. They are off the charts energy efficient, and they're whisper quiet. This is an infinity fan on this thing, so they're very non-invasive sound-wise. And I'm a huge fan of these things, mini splits, so I recommend them highly. So my energy usage is very low. I have a Toyota Prius Hybrid Prime. I paid around $24,000 for it in 2018 after the $4,000 tax credit. And the way it works is you can get approximately 30 miles that are all electric. And if you were on a trip that lasts longer than 30 miles, then the battery runs out and the hybrid battery kicks in. The Prius hybrid battery, which still gets something in the area of 53 to 55 miles per gallon. So my vehicle has traveled 28,500 miles, and I have averaged 106 miles per gallon. Ever since the gas went up a month or so ago, I've been reading about it, but I have yet to buy gas. So this is a beautiful thing about having a plug-in. Once you get a plug-in, and I bet many of you have one, you don't want to go back. I mean, I'm already setting money aside for a full plug-in. The big issue with plug-ins, of course, is range anxiety. But now they have some that can go well over 250, 300 miles on a charge. And I'm under the impression that that's going to keep going up. Okay, so, and by the way, the 30 miles that I charge on this come from the panels on my roof. So I also have a wood stove, and Here in Bryn Gwylyd, we have 240 acres of land. We have 90 acres of common land. Many of you are probably aware, because you're environmentalists, about the ash borer insect that's killed a lot of ash trees, which has left a lot of wood for those of us who burn it. Ash is a wonderful wood to burn in a wood stove. It's a good hard wood. And so I burn wood that is just from this community. And I predominantly heat with wood. Now I know that it does emit carbon, but, and maybe we should discuss this at the end, I think of wood as renewable energy. It's not solar energy, it's not wind energy, it's not hydro, but it's not fossil fuel either. If you plant a tree and wait long enough, you have wood, which is renewable. Or maybe it should be categorized semi-renewable. Let's discuss that later. Also, I do use gas for my chainsaw, and I use gas for my hydraulic wood splitter. I'm not about to split this stuff on my own. I go through about 50 feet of wood in a winter. It's quite a bit, but it keeps me from having to pull electricity off the grid, which would be created by PICO through other means. So it's something that I also love doing, and there's nothing like the heat of a wood stove. Keeps you in shape too. My lawn, I don't mow that much. I have meadows. I've been experimenting with this the last couple of years. There was something I just learned about this year called No Mow May. No Mow May. And so Jonathan Sprout has No Mow May, June, July, August, and September. I mow in patches, but I don't mow in other patches. And the birds and the critters go nuts inside these little mini meadows of mine. Notice in the back, I have a lot of tubes, plastic tubes that are housing trees that I've planted. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. Here's a close-up of the meadow with some more tubes.
That is wonderful, Jonathan.
Yeah, it's the latest. It's a new thing to me. I hadn't heard of before. No Mow May. I actually ever heard it referenced on Marty Moscowane's show. I don't know if you're familiar with Marty Moscowane. She's a big star here in Bucks County on the WHYY radio. And she had a guest on who was talking about all the benefits of not mowing. Now, of course, the good thing is if you have a gas mower, that's less gas you're burning. And of course, the grass that's growing here is sinking carbon. Maybe not permanently, but at least it's better than mowing it all. So the tree tubes, I've discovered 10 million trees. It's the coolest organization. And again, probably some of you already know about this organization. It's Pennsylvania based, and their mission is to plant 10 million trees. They want to repopulate the state of trees, which is what Pennsylvania means, state of trees, forested trees. And they work through the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, and you can reach out to them if you have land in Pennsylvania, and if you want free trees, they will get them for you. And they might even provide deer protection, which is those tubes and stakes that you saw, nice oak stakes. So 10 million trees I've worked with, and the only thing you need to give back is you have to tell them where you stick the tree in the ground. They log that, they need to have that for their records. And in the last year, they do a spring order and a fall order. The spring order is bare roots, no soil around the trees. And these are just 1-year-olds. They're, sometimes this big, 7-8 inches. And the fall orders apparently are all potted. And I've been able to manage about 800 trees that I've been able to get through 10 million trees through the Chesapeake Bay Foundation to distribute to dendritically leaning friends, tree lovers here in Bucks County, many in Bryn Gwelled, but you just have to live in Pennsylvania to be eligible for 10 million trees. So very, very cool thing.
Did you say 800 trees on your own property, or?
I said I got 800 trees. I would have put them on my own if they'd have fit, Kathy, but no, I helped distribute them. A lot of them went to our 90 acres of common land here in Bryn Gwelled. And I must have had a list. I sent out a bunch of emails to people. I said, who wants free trees? Everybody responded. So it ended up, I have a list of about 40 or 50 people who are, I call my tree list. And by the way, if you're one of those people, in the next couple of days, we're going to do another order that I think we have to get in the next week or two, and then they will be delivered to me at my house in Southampton in September, October, and then you show up and pick up the ones that you ordered, take them home, put them in the ground, take a picture, and send that to 10 million trees so that they have an accounting of where the tree is.
That's fabulous. I don't mean to interrupt, but
Please.
We would love to have you work with some of our members in your region to keep that going. We do work quite a bit with Chesapeake Bay Foundation and the tree program. One of our leaders and former board members, Greg Williams, is from Altoona, and he's planted distributed 5,000 trees in 2022 alone. So it's a wonderful, as you're saying, it's just a wonderful opportunity for us in the state of Pennsylvania. And we'd like to expand that effort across the state. So anything that you want to do to help out, we could arrange projects and volunteers for you if you want to collect more trees. So especially for, yes, Karen wrote, Greg is our hero. I don't know how he does it.
Wouldn't it be cool if every place of faith that's a member of the organization, one person at each place took care of ordering trees, not just to go to, the churches, the synagogues, but to go to the individual homeowners all throughout Pennsylvania. That would be very cool.
That would be wonderful. We're just going to keep that going. So we definitely want to get you and your group on the team there.
Good. Yeah, I sign my letters now. Yours truly. Not truly.
That's really great. That's fun.
Yeah. And so anyway, I have water buckets throughout the house. It's a small thing, but I happen to have a lot of plants outside, and I water them with rainwater versus tap water. Also, since let's just go in the weeds for a second here. People say, oh, but then mosquitoes. Well, are you guys all aware of something called mosquito bits? It's you buy a container of it. They're little flecks of things that you pour into the water, and they kill the larvae of the mosquito, and they are pet friendly and animal friendly. So you can use them and have buckets like this and not have to deal with mosquitoes. So low carbon footprint, low mosquito footprint. I love composting with a last name like Sprout. Come on, I've been composting for decades. This compost thing that I bought from Mantis, I have taken with me every time I've moved. It's a dual chamber, and composting is a beautiful thing. You can put all food scraps in it. I know I'm preaching to the choir. I know most of you probably already do this. You don't put flesh, you don't put bones, like chicken, whatever, it doesn't work. Dryer lint, you can compost. Tea bags, of course, coffee grounds, lawn grass, leaves. And I never have to buy topsoil because I always have compost. I want to mention something while I have this picture up. Behind this is siding. That's the color that it shows up. It has not been painted. This is a garage I had built recently. And that siding is made out of compressed coal ash. So that is a environmentally friendly way to build. It's known as poly ash or fly ash siding. It's non-flammable. It's resistant to insects and rot. And mine is named Boral, B-A-R-A-L, by a company called True Exterior. And I can send you the link to that. I didn't have time to throw it up here. It's a company that just makes this stuff. And my contractor put it on this garage when he built it 2 years ago. I was his first client to try it out, and it works well. It's been great. You are supposed to paint it, and I'm about to, but it's really cool. I mean, you can't tell that it's made out of coal ash. There are other ingredients. I don't know what they are. I think the coal ash is 50% of what we're seeing, but that's a very cool thing, I think, and a way to use, the leftovers of coal. Veggie burgers are more climate change friendly than beef and pork. I have one ready for dinner tonight after this meeting. The Sierra Club ran a special. They did a bunch of testing on veggie burgers, and Beyond Burgers are the greenest of them all. In other words, the ingredients travel the least far before they put them together. They're the most climate friendly of all the veggie burgers, and they taste really good. Also,
we'll all be over for dinner.
Yeah, you can see I have a whole bag of them, Kathy. So there you go. There's a lot of talk these days. Bill Gates has talked a lot about it, how cows are producing a lot of the methane that's contributing to climate change. This bypasses cows. And I believe that efficiency-wise, plant-based burgers are 10 times at least more energy efficient than beef burgers in terms of the energy expended to create them. Now, here's another cool little Jonathan thing. I make my own iced tea without heat. It was an accident. I discovered this. I was going to cook up a pot of iced tea, and I forgot to turn the stove on. And the next day I had iced tea. And so you've probably heard of sun tea. You can stick it out in the sun like I did here, but you don't have to. If you just soak the tea bags for 24 hours, you have tea. And then you, of course, sweeten it if you want and refrigerate it, and you have iced tea without having to use heat. I invented that. I like to bicycle. This is a clip from a future Force for Good movie on the beauties of cycling. I took this without crashing while I was on a ride from Prague to Budapest. Now I know I had to get on an airplane to get there, so I burned up some carbon, but I love bicycling.
You're going to have to join us on the PA IPL bike and hike next year.
Oh, you got it. I'm there.
That would be fabulous.
By the way, and I'm off subject to tell you all this, but I have bicycled across Pennsylvania twice in the 1990s. There was a great organization called Pedal PA. And the first time we started in Pittsburgh and we went to the Liberty Bell. And the second time we started in Erie and went to the Liberty Bell. And we live in a beautiful state, and it's not flat. I can attest to that. So I think I'm almost done here. Let's talk about the other side of fighting climate change. It's better to join organizations than to act singly. And my favorites are the Sierra Club, Greenpeace, and Citizens Climate Lobby. Citizens Climate Lobby has 21 chapters in Pennsylvania. It's an international group of people who believe that there should be a tax on carbon. When you are a company that pulls carbon, oil, say, out of the ground, you should be paying a tax on that. And we have, I think we might have with us Bill Metler tonight. Bill, are you with us? If so, come on out of silence. Bill is the president or the chapter lead for the Bucksmont chapter, which is here in Eastern Pennsylvania. If Bill is with us, I'm not sure.
I don't see Bill. I don't see that Bill's with us just yet. Maybe he'll be joining a little bit later.
Okay, fine. It's probably out mowing his lawn. Just kidding. If he joins us later, maybe he'll put in a word or two. For all of you here, I did talk to Kathy ahead of time, and Kathy, you know about CCL, Citizens Climate Lobby, so maybe a lot of you are already familiar with this.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Because there are so many chapters across the state, many of our members are already dual members of that. But Karen just mentioned you're going to have to add PAIPL to your list now. On your last slide, on your.
You're right. You're right. So I'm creating a film with Rodney, and we're going to talk about this for the next album called Above, or well, I'm not even sure what it's going to be called, but here's what it'll be about. It'll be all this footage I've taken from airplanes, and it's about how when you're far enough away from something, it all looks beautiful, and you can't tell the red states from the blue states, and you can't tell the good guys from the bad guys, and we all just, well, it's just a beautiful planet. We don't want it to look like this. This was a scene from somewhere out near the Grand Canyon, I think, on a very, very beautiful day from 26,000 feet. But we don't want the whole Earth to look like that, do we? It should look a little bit more like the next one. We know that one person can make a big difference. It's time to step up. Let's each be that person, one step at a time. A few other thoughts. LED light bulbs everywhere. We have something here in Bryn Gwilym called Free Cycle. Once a month, we get together as a community. We do work parties. We have a potluck dinner. We have business meetings. And we set up a couple of tables where people bring things that are of value that they no longer want. So you get rid of what you don't want, and you pick through the things that you do want. Whatever's left over after a day or two ends up going to charity. And maybe this is something that many of the churches and synagogues, et cetera, are already involved with, but it was an idea that was new to me when I moved here 8 years ago. It's called Free Cycle, and I love the idea. You know,
that is a great idea.
Yeah. I just want to mention also, we have a styrofoam person here in the community who collects styrofoam and delivers it. Close to us here in Bucks County, we have something called Northeast Foam Recycling in Chalfont, and they will take number 6 foam. If you put it in the trash or recycling, it goes to trash. It doesn't recycle. It has to get special love in order to get recycled. And so you might want to look into doing that with styrofoam. And finally, I just have to say this: when I go shopping, I bring canvas bags. And probably like many of you, I don't like seeing plastic bags used in supermarkets. And I hope that you will help reduce plastic bag usage whenever possible. So I've kind of been all over the place here, but I'll leave you with a quote that I remember learning as a Boy Scout. Whenever possible, take only pictures, leave only footprints. We can live that way too. So there you go.
That's
So,
lovely, Jonathan. We had first, Pat Libby had a question. I think she's one of our first people to raise her hand. I would encourage everybody who's on board to raise their hand, and we'll try to call on you one at a time to unmute yourself and ask Jonathan questions. So thank you so much, Jonathan, for that beautiful and inspiring presentation. So I certainly hope that many of us are practicing already some of the strategies, that the net zero strategies that you suggested, but I'm sure you've also encouraged us to try new things as well. So the way we thought we would structure our response and questions is we'd ask questions of Jonathan's net zero lifestyle first, and then we'd move on to Jonathan and his colleague Rodney Wittenberg to talk about their film and music making and offerings, so we can talk about the films second. So let's start with Pat.
Okay, thank you. I was just wondering when he was talking about joining up with CCL to get the companies, excuse me, to pay for their emissions. Is that part of RGGI, which I hear has been approved for the state of Pennsylvania? We're just waiting for it to go into effect.
you know, we have a CCL expert here. I see Tom Wells. Tom, can you answer that question?
Hi, yeah, my name is Tom Wells. I'm a volunteer with Citizens Climate Lobby. It's actually a national and now an international organization. There's probably over 500 chapters in the US. In Bucks County, we have a chapter called the Bucks-Mont chapter because we're Montgomery County and Bucks County. We promote national legislation regarding carbon pricing, and we are nonpartisan, and we always show the deepest respect for every senator and every congressperson, regardless of their political persuasion or anything. We try to act as educators around how to reduce the amount of carbon that's going into the atmosphere. So that's it. Look it up online. Yeah, RGGI is as you know, is state-based. We lobby Congress and Senate, the U.S. Senate and senators. So, for example, I had a meeting with the staff of Brian Fitzpatrick, a Zoom meeting last week, and we discussed with the staffer who was assigned to talk with us. There were about 6 of us on the Zoom, and we were asking questions about Brian Fitzpatrick's take on a couple of different things. Number one, climate legislation, and number two, a carbon border adjustment, which we feel is also required in order to deal with carbon in the atmosphere. And so I've been down to DC back in the day before COVID, probably been to at least 40 offices to talk with staff and senators and congresspeople about carbon pricing. And we write letters to the editors, we do tabling events, we just about any kind of way that we can get our voice heard at the congressional and at the Senate level.
That answer your question?
Well, now I'd heard that RGGI not only involved making them pay for their emissions, but every year they would have to reduce the emissions so that there'd be reductions going on in payments, and then the payments would be used to improve the situations. Is that what you had heard also?
Well, yeah, but we're doing it at a national level. So we're trying to get it, for the entire country. And, you know, RGGI is very, very important. And part of the reason that RGGI exists is because we do not have a national policy. So states, different states and different groups of states in different parts of the country are banding together to do what you're talking about. In the case of the program that we're promoting, which is called Carbon Fee and Dividend, you know, fossil fuel companies would pay a tax with taking fossil fuels out of the ground, and then that money would be collected by the federal government, and then it would be divided up in equal amounts so that every citizen of the United States would get a check once a month, which would, you know, would be their dividend, and they can use that for, you know, whatever they want. But the idea is that if we put a tax on fossil fuel, if we make fossil fuel companies pay for you know, for the pollution that they're causing, then that will increase the price of a lot of products. So we want the money that's collected to go back to make sure that middle-class people and people of lesser income, will not have a you know, a dent in their family budget. In other words, the money will cover for them the amount that they're going to end up paying in inflation. And for people of very low income, they actually make money on it. They actually end up with more money than they would probably have to pay in you know, the cost of food or gasoline or whatever.
But isn't our main goal to get rid of the emissions, to totally, you know,
What it
get it
does is
down to zero?
it levels the playing field, and it makes fossil fuels more expensive, and because right now they're getting subsidized, it makes them much more expensive. And then people will recognize that, well, you know, like Jonathan has recognized that it's much cheaper to have a house with solar panels on it than it is to have an oil furnace and buying heating oil. And because already solar and wind power are cheaper. So what a price on carbon would do would be make fossil fuels even less competitive than they are right now. And so naturally people and businesses would move away from fossil fuels. Like, for example, next time I buy a car is going to be an electric car, because fossil fuels are getting more and more expensive and electricity is getting less and less expensive, right? So that's the idea. And I would recommend that you go to the Citizens Climate Lobby website and you can read up on it. I don't want to take up too much more time of Jonathan's time.
Yeah, and I see that Steve Whitaker has a hand up too.
Thank you. Go ahead, Steve.
Let me see. Okay. Yeah, I have a question about buying carbon offsets. Now, occasionally we are forced to fly, as you mentioned, Jonathan, and we feel guilty about it. And I'm wondering, and when you try to buy carbon offsets online, you get, you know, 40 hits, 50 hits. Everybody wants to sell carbon offsets, and I don't know which ones are legitimate, which ones are not. So if anyone has any information about buying carbon offsets, I would appreciate it for those of us who are from time to time forced to go out of the net zero into the carbon emitting zone of the world.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if maybe that's something that we can, rather than everybody chiming in with their favorite carbon offset company, which could take the rest of the hour, if that could be something that could be filtered and sent back as part of the recording to everybody. Does that make sense, Kathy?
That's a great idea. I'm also posting in the chat a link to the NRDC, or National Resources Defense Council guide to carbon offsets. So I know we can trust them for recommendations there. And I'll be searching for a few other links while we're continuing the conversation too. And I'll bet that Citizens Climate Lobby has something on their website too. IPL doesn't post anything in particular, but I'll do what I can right now to find something for you, and then we'll follow up with additional links And as a side note, I've been posting links to everything that Jonathan's talked about, such as the mantis composters and the fly ash siding along the way. So if you are able to save the chat, you'll be able to find those links. And if not, please get in touch with me and I'll be happy to send them to you personally. Does anyone
you.
have any other questions for Jonathan about his net zero lifestyle? I must say this is a lovely home and a lovely community, and you've been there for 8 years. But I see Arthur has a question.
I don't know, perhaps I missed it. Did you talk about geothermal?
I don't know much about geothermal, Arthur. There are, I think, there's at least one home here in Bryn Gwylyn that does use geothermal energy. I chose to basically talk about my personal experience. I think it's a little challenging if you have a well to do geothermal, because you're shaking up the ground, so to speak, and it can mess with your well water. I've heard of that. But I do have neighbors here who have a well and do have geothermal, and eventually, I guess things settled down and the water got good again.
I can chime in a little there. I
Okay.
know a little bit about geothermal heat pumps. Typically, it's cost prohibitive for the average homeowner unless the homeowner is including an addition or a massive renovation to their property, because it does require the drilling of wells or the installation of a field of pipes. So if you're doing a lot of excavation, it might make sense, and it's very, very effective at using the temperature of the earth, which stays at approximately 50 degrees all year round, to give you a little boost for hot water system or a forced air system. But if you're not digging already, it's very, very costly to bring in a drilling rig or an excavation rig in order to make that happen. But if you are doing it, it's great. There's a community called Mole Hill Housing, mole like the small mammal, Mole Hill Housing in British Vancouver, in Canada, and they deployed that strategy on a number of homes that they renovated to make a sustainable community probably about 20 years ago. And as far as I know, they're still going strong. So they did it at scale and brought the price down for everyone. So maybe, Jonathan, you could look in for your entire community, drilling the wells and then dividing that cost, over the number of homes you have there. That might work. And if you drill vertically, carefully, you can probably get around the wells. And then you have closed loop and open loop systems. So you have to explore what's right for you. Closed loop means you're circulating a fluid throughout the system to use the temperature of the earth, and the open loop means that you're using water that you might find in a well system, an underground river, an actual river or a stream, and they're problematic. You have to test the water and make sure that there aren't chemicals or minerals in the water that might deposit themselves in the machinery and sort of gunk up the works. But I know someone at Carnegie Mellon University that's done extensive research on the open loop systems in our region, and they're not recommended here. But if you'd like more information on that, I can connect you with Nina Baird, from a professor at CMU, who can give you the benefit of a lifetime of research. Any other questions for John, living in this beautiful home and just fabulous community, before we move on to film and music? Feel free to unmute yourself. Oh, there's Carolyn. Go ahead, Carolyn.
I grew up in Bryn Gwylyn Homesteads, having lived there for since 1946.
Oh, wow. And you're still living there now?
No, my husband and I, we moved to a retirement community just a couple years ago. But Bryn Gweled has, since the beginning, 82 years ago, people have been environmentally conscious. All of the building and care of the common land and the streams and the woods have been really examined to be as environmentally conscious as we can. And some of the land, we have an agreement with local heritage conservancy wetlands and along the streams in the woods so that it will never be built upon.
That's wonderful. So is it sort of like a cohabitation community where you have people of all ages living together, where you share the
All
land?
ages,
Mhm.
all ages. It's about 240 acres, about 400 residents, many families, many young families recently, and about a third of the land is common land for everyone to use along the woods and the streams. But then there's a section around the community center where we have soccer field, community garden, swimming pool, community center, tennis courts. So there's something for everybody, and everybody knows everybody and helps everybody. But
Now that our COVID restrictions are lifting, I wonder if we could head down your way for a tour someday.
Yes, you are talking to the chair of the PR committee right here. So we all wear lots of hats, don't we, friends? So yes, you just give me a ring and we'll set up a little Tory poo here and show you our exciting Frank Lloyd Wright inspired homes. And Rodney will come by and we'll talk Force for Good films. I'm trying to get Rodney to move in here forever, but he's got this Ben Franklin home he loves. So yes, we'd be glad to give you a tour and
That would be fabulous.
talk
We
about it.
heard one more. We had one more before we move into films. We had one more interesting comment in the chat where JD Stillwater and Ann mentioned that they are using nighttime cooling as a method of cooling their home, so they don't need to use their air conditioning during the summer months. Would you all like to speak to that a little bit?
Who, me? No, or them.
Well, I was
Whoever
thinking
in chat?
you or them, you or them. They seem, oh, I think we lost them. I think they might have popped off for dinner.
Okay.
Do you know about that
Yes.
concept?
Yeah, you know, I am a temperature fanatic. I have a thermometer that has an outside temperature and the inside temperature. My dad was a math teacher and he always did this. So I'm always comparing the temperatures and deciding whether I should open the window or sleep with the windows open or leave them open during the day. I think that's critical to, you know, heat temperature regulation in the house. Let God heat and cool your house as much as she can, and you do the rest, you know? So yes, that's all, that all makes good sense to me.
Thank you. Well, would you and Rodney like to talk about your films at this point? But where did you get your inspiration and what keeps you going is one of the questions I have up front, but I'll let you dive in.
Rodney, why don't you, I've been talking too much. Why don't you tell our story?
So Jonathan and I have known each other for a long time, and I have been making film for the past 25 years, but I'm trained. My training is as a composer, but I think of myself more as a storyteller because I love to tell stories, and filmmaking is just another skill or another way to tell stories, just like writing songs or music or poetry or any of those things. So I ran into Jonathan at a Grammy event, and he was telling me what he was up to with composing these sort of new agey kind of music. I mean, that was how you described them to me. And I said, oh, well, we should make a whole series of little simple videos with like waterfalls and nature scenes. And that's kind of how it started. And we started doing them, and it just felt like that wasn't enough. And within about, I guess, 3 months of attempting to make these short videos, maybe it was 4 months, and into it, a Force for Good was born. And it came out of how we were beginning to see these as really little pieces of art, as opposed to just a music video. And I have been a long believer that art and advocacy can go hand in hand. And there's so many examples of it. I mean, the Sistine Chapel is really a political statement. If you look at it the way Michelangelo thought about it when he was painting it, he really didn't want to paint that. He was making fun of the powers that be in the painting. And there's so many other examples of other artists who do the same thing. I mean, Shakespeare's plays were all commentary on the political state or the times that were going on. And art can be very effective to communicate with people ideas that are difficult to talk about. And that was one of our goals in making these short films. Sometimes you walk up, if you want to talk to someone about solar energy, particularly if they have a certain political bent or mindset, they don't want to talk to you. They're like, talking about no sustainable energy. But if you show them a short film that's just these beautiful scenes of solar panels, or these moving scenes of windmills, or the sadness of the polar ice caps melting, and or just the glory and beauty of nature, it's a way of opening up a dialogue, opening up a conversation that just where people come to it from a different place than if you are just talking to them or having a discussion with them. And so that's sort of our inspiration. And there's no shortage of subjects to make these short films about. And it's been awesome working with Jonathan, because I've seen him turn into a filmmaker as we've been working, because he's a natural storyteller. And it's just been great working together on creating these works of art and these pieces of work that carry a message.
So Rodney and I, we kept sort of adding to each other's thoughts about what we could do. And I remember having an epiphany night where in the middle of the night, I think I woke up, I had a pen and a pen or a pencil, and I just wrote until daybreak, pages and pages of important issues that, you know, in a perfect world, if I was the king of the world, these would be the issues that I would be dealing with. And they included homelessness, the refugee crisis, sensible gun legislation, the melting of the polar ice caps, advancing renewable energies. Help me out, Rodney. What else do we have?
Well,
protecting the ocean.
Oh,
yeah, and
reducing
some are just a
plastic.
celebration, and some are just a celebration of being alive, like vinyasa, or I mean, there's some that are just the joy of living, and or the exploration of faith in
grace.
What is the name? What's that?
And hope.
Oh, and reverence, right? And the
Reverence.
exploration of faith. And so it was just really looking at all the things that affect us as humans, but also the human condition, and just being able to explore all that through music and art, music and film, I should say. Yeah.
I hope everyone's had a chance to watch. As Jonathan and Rodney are saying, we suggested several, 15, but there are many more. There are probably 30, I think, available now, and you have new ones coming out every month or so, sort of seasonally, I suppose. Did any of you have any favorites?
I recently saw the one on gun safety, and it was very effective.
Eye-opening, so to speak.
Yeah, I filmed at, remember the very first March for Our Lives in March of 2018 after the Marjorie Stoneman massacre. Rodney set me up. He showed me how to do it, and I just went to Doylestown, Pennsylvania, where there was a march. There were marches all over the country that time, and I filmed. I just turned on my smartphone, and Rodney helped me make sense of it to create this safe video, which I think has subsequently been awarded 11 sets of laurels from different film festivals. So it's really struck a nerve with film festivals.
I didn't mention the many awards you have won, which are extensive. So when the films are very beautiful, both in their visual cinematography, I guess I should say, Rodney, and then the music, accompanying music, they're just very moving. So whether Hope happens to be one of my favorites because I'm often feeling depressed, down in the climate that we're living in when we have one shooting, related to the gun safety video after another. So every now and then I just need that extra boost to keep me getting through the day. So I found that to be particularly helpful. But grace and reverence and wilderness and community, we're all here tonight together as a community, how important that is, and how supporting communities throughout our society is very helpful. But related to climate change, you also, as Jonathan mentioned, feel free to use these films because Jonathan and Rodney provide them graciously free of charge. So when you are making points to your lawmakers or to your homeowners associations or to others, feel free to use them as a source of inspiration for them as well. Perhaps they'll help you make headway in that regard. Any other favorites? Jonathan and Rodney write music as well, so that's available on their website too. So we weren't promoting the music as much for this particular meeting, but I guess we can explore that website pretty thoroughly, correct, guys?
Yeah, the forceforgoodmusic.com website is full of things, including, not just a press kit with information about our 2 different CDs that have spawned the 24 different films we've made. We also have a very elaborate resources page. So each one of our films, we've done a tremendous amount of work and linked to organizations that we stand by, that address the issues that we discuss in each of the films. That's taken hundreds of hours to create. So we are a little mini database of very effective organizations and individuals. They're all linked. If you go to our resources page, for each of our 24 films, you'll see lots of stuff. You could be plenty of time. It would take lots of time to go through everything we've done.
Oh, thank you so much for doing all that, making that available. Does anyone have any more questions or any more thoughts on films and music?
Can I say something about the film on plastics? I was speaking with somebody else from Interfaith Power and Light about well, I guess I was in on a lobbying call with Senator Casey, and I shared how I live in one of the most Republican counties in the United States, and I can't really make any headway when I say the words climate change to anyone. They turn off like a light bulb. But when I talk about plastics in the ocean, they say, "Oh yes, that's terrible. I wish we could do something." And so I'm trying to say to people that can you pick that up?
Yeah. Well, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'll try again. There was a
Yeah.
phone ringing. Yeah, so I watched your film about plastics, and I will check out the resources there, because I do feel that oh my goodness. I do feel that that's a good avenue, and that's all I'll say.
One of the things that when we create a film, yours truly becomes one of the people who tries to get it out there in front of eyeballs. And that is very challenging. Every day there are 6 years of videos that go up on YouTube. So you have to be a squeaky wheel to be heard. You have to really promote yourself to be seen. But we did have some success with an organization called the Plastic Pollution Coalition, based in Hollywood. It's a bunch of people and organizations that are working to reduce particularly single-use plastic. And so I got to connect with their CEO there, who then helped me tweak the film. The film was not strong enough for her, and she sent me on a little expedition to watch some other films about plastic. So it was a very learning experience for me, and then we were able to go back in and change some of our message to make it more appropriate. So it's been a great learning experience making these films and being through a give and take with different people and organizations.
Oh, please, Pat, go ahead.
Now that I'm back from vacation, I'll have some time. I'd like to see several of your videos. Is it possible to send me connecting possibilities so that I can see some of these?
I'd be happy to send those to you. Yeah, I'd be happy to send those to you,
Yeah.
Pat.
Email them through, because I can't just copy the chat. Thank you.
Certainly. I think I heard another question. Was it Arthur? Or Rodney? Is it Rodney wanting to say something there? Nope. Wait, I thought I heard a male voice.
What was the name of the plastic movie?
Plastics.
Plastic.
Pretty simple. That's what I love. Each one of the movies, they're just very to the point. They're very understandable. They're quite beautiful, and they have an accompanying soundtrack, I guess I should say. That not being a filmmaker myself, I don't really know the technical term, but I was truly inspired by all of them. So I really encourage you to take a look.
Is there a website?
Yes, I'll put that in the chat, and I'll be happy to send it to you, Arthur. If you look at the invitation that went out for the summer film series, you'll notice that there are a number of links in there as well. So if you actually want to look tonight, right away, you'll be able to find the Force for Good website in several locations, and each one of the 15 films that we recommended because they seemed to be most aligned with our mission. There's a link for each one of them at the film name. For example, oceans, wind energy, plastic, reverence, wilderness, natural, etc. So you can click on each one of those words in the invitation, and it should take you straight to the film. And what's wonderful, they're so accessible. They're 5 to 10 minutes, so you're not investing hours of your time, but you're getting the message succinctly and beautifully.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to attempt to screen share to encourage you to do a few other things before everyone has to run. Sorry, to move my PowerPoint up here a little bit. There we go. There we go. So I just want to thank Jonathan and Rodney, award-winning filmmakers and musicians, for being with us tonight and sharing their work and their inspiration for their work, which comes from a place of faith and moral and ethical consciousness. So thank you all. For those of you who don't know, PA-IPL will be expanding our work quite a bit in the creation care area in 2022, thanks to 3 DEP, PA DEP grants. One is the Growing Greener Plus grant, which we're particularly proud of because it's a 3-year grant. It's for significant funds, and we will be working with the DEP to try to help them meet the requirements of the EPA in helping in watershed conservation and water conservation to improve the most impaired streams across the state, which are called restoration priority areas. So we're really looking forward to that. We'll be focusing in year 1 on areas in and around Pittsburgh, in and around State College, Lancaster and Harrisburg, and in around Philadelphia. So watch for more information will be coming your way. We've hired new people to help us in various parts of the state. We also received 2 environmental education grants, which will focus in southwestern PA on Ballfield Farm on the north side of Pittsburgh and Garfield Community Farm in Garfield, and in Philadelphia in the Juniata Park Academy area, which is in North Philly, and FUMCOG, the First United Methodist Church of Germantown, which is in Germantown. And we'll be reaching out at these locations, listening to people, asking them to tell their stories, telling our stories, and helping them to find programs and strategies that they can implement in their lives to get closer to where Jonathan is in more of a net zero approach. And then we have been expanding our advocacy as well. And I can't impress upon you enough how important this is going to be coming up to the November election. We're working with a grant from IPL, our national organization, called the Faith Climate Justice Voter Campaign. And we are going to be rolling out new voters, registering voters, getting people to the polls, all those types of voting campaigns. We've already hired a new person in southwestern PA to work with us here, and we're looking for people in central PA and eastern PA. I talked with an elected official who will remain unnamed, and he did state that I hate to get into partisan politics because we're a nonpartisan organization, but this happened to be a Democratic elected official. And he did say that the Democrats are very worried, they're very concerned, because not only are they working with some of the highly volatile conservatives or Republicans on the other side of the aisle, but Democratic voters appear to be incredibly apathetic right now because they're frustrated with inflation and rising gas prices. So we have to actually work harder just to get those voters out to the polls. So I can't impress upon you enough how important it'll be to work with us and other organizations on that. So if you have a desire to volunteer with PA-IPL, we can really use you over the next few months moving up towards November to help with that campaign. And we've been working with the Climate Action Campaign over the course of several months to encourage petition signing among our members, membership base, and their membership bases, their networks. I did place in the very early part of the chat links to petitions, so please take a look at those and sign. You can sign as a grassroots individual, which is, you know, your basic person like me. If you have a personal stake in the particular petition. Today, I believe, is the last day to sign the Casper petition, which is related to the EPA's Good Neighbor rule. So if you haven't signed that already, please do that today as either a grassroots or a grass tops person. So a grass tops person would be someone who is in any kind of leadership position, whether you're the president of your condo association or your neighborhood block organization or the community that you live in, or if you're elected into a commission or board member position, or if you're a business owner or a chair of any kind of committee, a faculty member, a faculty chair. It would be wonderful if you could sign as the grass tops, because we get more weight if those types of people sign those. So please explore those links in the chat and reach out to me at outreach@PAIPL if you need the links if you need me to send you those links themselves. I want to draw attention to a wonderful spiritual care session, which will be this Wednesday. There's much going on this week at PAIPL. This Wednesday, 6/22 at 7 p.m., our board members, George Dempsey and Sister Donna Corba, will be leading another presentation on the active hope spiral. This week's theme will be environmental justice, and I think that's particularly appropriate this week as we celebrate Juneteenth. So if you need an invitation to that event, please reach out to me again or check your email for an invitation from David, our executive director. And does anyone have any additional questions for me or for Jonathan or Rodney? I don't see any hands. So I'm hoping you can see my screen still. I'd like to close with, oh, sorry, I see something in the chat. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Karen, for coming. I really appreciate your attendance. This is a reading from the Dalai Lama's book called Compassion and the Individual. And I think anyone, no matter what faith you adhere to, will take inspiration from this. So please read along with me. From my own limited experience, I have found that the greatest degree of inner tranquility comes from the development of love and compassion. The more we care for the happiness of others, the greater our own sense of well-being becomes. Cultivating a close, warm-hearted feeling for others automatically puts the mind at ease. This helps remove whatever fears or insecurities we may have and gives us the strength to cope with any obstacles we encounter. It is the ultimate source of success in life. As long as we live in this world, we are bound to encounter problems. If, at such times, we lose hope and become discouraged, we diminish our ability to face difficulties. If, on the other hand, we remember that it is not just ourselves, but everyone who has to undergo suffering, this more realistic perspective will increase our determination and capacity to overcome troubles. Indeed, with this attitude, each new obstacle can be seen as yet another valuable opportunity to improve our mind. Thus, we can strive gradually to become more compassionate. That is, we can develop both genuine sympathy for others' suffering and the will to help remove their pain. As a result, our own serenity and inner strength will increase. Thank you very much for attending this evening. And please feel free to reach out to me at my email address or phone number at any time, and I will do my best to assist you.